Welcome to the latest episode of the Celtic Exchange Weekly. This is Tino. This week I'm joined by James, Asim and Paddy as we once again cover all things Celtic. Lads, we're through to the last 16 of the Scottish Cup. We've got a massive game to look forward to against Young Boys in the Champions League on Wednesday. Alessandro Bernabé is away to Brazil and Kyogo's celebrating his birthday. Where do you want to start, Paddy?
Happy birthday to Kyogo.
I'll pass it on.
The main man. Yep, I think obviously all the best to Bernabé as well. I think he's found a club that's invested in him, and I think it seems to be working well for him there. So best wishes for the wee man. What an exciting week. What a big game coming up for us on Wednesday, and just can't wait to get tore into it and just have a discussion on how we're all feeling about it as well. So yeah, really looking forward to it. I think seen glimpses on Saturday that give me confidence that we're just waiting in that team. We're going to take 3-4 off of, and it could be Wednesday if we wanted. Yeah,
it could be, and here's hoping. Asim, welcome back to the show. First appearance of the new year, so great to have you here. What's your general take on all things Celtic just now? There are some folks, and I stress some, who are very much glass half empty at this moment in time, despite where we are in the bigger picture. But what about yourself?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been on. A lot's happened since then. I think it was whilst we were still unbeaten in the league the last time I was on, maybe even pre-Zagreb. So yeah, a lot, in 3 different competitions actually, even before the cup final. So it's I think it's all builds up to, as Paddy says, this week, biggest game I think personally in maybe a decade.
Mm-hmm.
You could argue since maybe the UAB knockout game. That's how big this appears to be. So we've had a tricky last 5 or 6 weeks in terms of the form's been a bit up and down. Obviously the Ibrox game, there was a lot of chat after that, a lot of kind of reaction, some justified, some maybe over the top. But I think Saturday, as you mentioned there, I think that seemed like we were kind of getting back in the groove, and I think that was important for us to see that, because I think we want to go into Wednesday night feeling a bit more confident again. And I think if we put in that kind of performance with a bit more of a ruthless edge, we'll be feeling a lot better. But overall, I think, look, we're top of the league, 13 points clear, League Cup in the bag, a win away from the playoffs of the Champions League, and through to the next round of the Scottish Cup. If this isn't a good time to be a Celtic fan, then I don't know when is.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just a separate question for y'all. The Rangers result isn't the only reason fans are moaning, but I would ask the question, James, say we had drawn that game, we'd seen out a 1 each draw at Ibrox, and then done what we've done since then, which is won 4 and drawn 1 of the 5 games since. Do you think there'd have been as much tension? Is that just life at Celtic? If you don't beat Rangers, there will always be that backlash?
I mean, this has been coming, on any game where we're not 3 up after half an hour. So I think the Rangers game doesn't help, because you never like to lose to them. But even dropping points, Dundee United, and then Rangers and then Dundee, it's more about the fact that we're not, is that not taking care of teams in half an hour? And it's madness. We'll get called happy clappers for this. But the game lasts 90 minutes, and if you've got more goals than the other team in those 90 minutes, that's what counts, especially in a period when you've got such an intense block of fixtures. Now, if it's a bit looser and you're not playing 2-3 times a week, 7 times in 20 days, you can start to focus a wee bit on the type of football you're playing. It's just not possible when you're looking at so many games in such a short space of time. So I think everyone needs to be aware of that and just give the team a break and support the team, because we're exactly where we want to be. We're beyond where we want to be. And I can't find anything really to moan about. I like him on.
You do like him on. You do like him on. You'll find something. Don't worry about that. There's you've got to take various factors into consideration as well. And it was highlighted, Brendan Rodgers spoke after the game about Kilmarnock had 10 days to prepare for that game on Saturday. That makes a difference. They hadn't played since the 8th of December against Motherwell. 8th of December?
January.
They had a month and 10 days to prepare.
Lucky them.
January. And likewise, Dundee, I think they had a full week to prepare for that game. So yes, Celtic have got bigger resources, bigger squad, all that kind of thing. But that time and that recovery and that prep can play a part. So there's all sorts of things at play. Just a final question before we kick on to another part of the show. You'll have seen the headline this morning. Is it a headline? Is it a byline? That Alessandro Bernabé is gone. He's away to Internacional in Brazil for 5 odd million. Asim, it's Greg Taylor once again. He's seen off another contender to the throne. He's seen off the likes of Bernabé, Volleyball and goalie Diego Laxalt, and in all likelihood Alex Baye. What do you think of his exit and where we stand in the left back position?
What a selection of left backs right there. Well, I think it's like said, Diego Laxalt came in with quite the reputation, didn't he? Uruguayan international, AC Milan, even with Bernabé as well. Everyone was quite excited about the move, and we all kind of were willingly hoping that he could turn it on. But sometimes it just happens that way where certain players are suited to certain types of football. So wish him well. We've done well out of it. We've made a profit on him. And it looks like all parties are happy. The club obviously seem delighted that they've made their signing, International, and for Burnaby as well. It's one of those you could end up in a couple of years seeing him playing for another decent European side if he carries on the form that he's in. So I think for all concerned, it's a good move. In terms of Greg Taylor, I think he's been the most consistent. I think that's why he's been a mainstay in the team. The others have came in and just not been able to handle the demands of playing for Celtic. So fair play to Greg Taylor on that. But by all accounts, there'll be another left back in probably by the time you record another show next week.
You never know. Do you remember the time Burnaby assisted his own goal?
Aye.
Was it in pre-season? It
In Japan, was it?
Gambo
And
Asaka.
then gone chasing his own ball and scored the goal. That kind of summed up Burnaby. But good luck to him as he moves on. Here's a question, just to finish on that. Let me think. On Saturday and against Ross County, we see Liam Scales come on at left back. Brendan Rodgers was asked about it and he says it's to do with the physical challenge. And I actually think on each occasion it made perfect sense, because getting into the last 10-15 against these sides, these teams go very direct, if not already in the game, but they look for every set piece, every throw-in, every chance to go physical and put Celtic's defence under pressure. So of course that makes sense, Paddy, to bring in Liam Scales with his height and physical presence to do that job rather than Greg Taylor. Me and James spoke about it on the post-match after Kelly. It's no disrespect to Taylor, but Scales has got that presence, whereas Taylor's more of a ball player. So what do you think of that move? And bigger picture, we know there might be a KT on the way. Is Liam Scales a genuine option as left-back cover?
I don't think he is, and I think actually he's brought on because we're not bringing Bailly on, because I think he's out on his way out. I generally think that's what it's down to, T, and I think maybe Taylor's just not been fit enough for the 90 minutes, and he's thinking about obviously Wednesday night coming up. Greg Taylor will start, but I don't think he's bringing Alex Bailly on solely down to the reason that he's 1 foot out the door.
Remember the fixture last year, Celtic Park against Kelly? I think it was 1 each, and it was Burnaby who was done for a back post header.
True.
So I thought it was a good move bringing Scales on, and I thought Scales did pretty well as well. But going forward, I don't think he suits the kind of style of football that we're going to want from a left back.
I agree with that generally, but you don't think he was good going forward on Saturday?
I actually thought he was, yeah.
Kind
He
of quite
looked
exceptional.
different to what I'd normally expect from him.
A free roll.
Aye,
let him go.
Just
Let him go.
Yeah.
If not for a correct offside call, he'd have had an assist for Maeda, the one that he knocked in. So we'll see. But Liam Scales has a part to play. But I wonder if he's now finding himself a guy who will come on at centre half and come on at left back if required, but not start. We'll need to see. Let's look more generally at the performance against Kelly. And I'll ask you lads a question. Was it our best performance of the new year? We've had some ups and downs, some bumps in the road. Ibrox, absolutely. Dundee. But in terms of the new year form, we've played 6, won 4, drawn 1, lost 1, goals for 14, goals against 8, and that's higher than much of what had gone before it. Obviously.
I think it's double.
Yeah, we'd lost 4 up
4
until then.
Domestically, so but we're obviously having our issues there. But in the game itself, we dominated, and don't let anyone in the mainstream or in the Celtic fan base actually tell you otherwise. We absolutely dominated the game, save for a couple of spells at the time where Kelly got their goal. And they've kind of had a goal late in the game, but nothing particularly worrying. The stats read 18 shots to 5 for Celtic, 7 on target versus 2 on target for Kelly, and 66% possession. This is maybe a stretch, James, but I'll ask you anyway. Has Brendan Rodgers and the coaching staff been managing recent games with a view to having us at optimal levels against Young Boys? This is the most important game, and we've known for some time. So it doesn't make sense to go hell for leather just so you can beat Dundee last week, which in the bigger picture won't matter, dropping points there. Have they geared things all towards Wednesday coming? We'll have a better answer by Wednesday night and Thursday morning. But, is that maybe the plan, and that's the reason why we've seen some ups and downs?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've essentially set up a mini tournament of their own between, late November and where we are now. And they set out their targets on that and what they're prepared to accept in terms of points dropped. And I think we've come through that, screaming ahead in the league. Last 16 in the Scottish, League Cup in the bag, and potentially post-Christmas Champions League for the first time in 12 years, I think it is. So I think they have done that, but they've done that mostly through rotation, which in any team affects performance. It's not necessarily the guy is better or worse. It's that there's 4 or 5 changes that disrupts the flow of a team.
You can look at Alistair Johnston and Kuhn as a good example of that. They had great flow together, great partnership, and it's not quite kicked off in the last couple of games.
Yeah, But, Kuhn's body was starting to toil a wee bit just in terms of the load he'd been taking on. So getting him that enforced rest, but getting that rest anyway, you've definitely seen it from Daizen. It's left us in a place where the team that started on Saturday is probably, gun to head, your most fans' first choice 11. There'll be a few wee, bits and pieces here and there, but I think that's by and large what fans would pick as a strongest 11. So we've now got that strongest 11 available for Wednesday night. So you'd have to say it's been a pretty successful mini-tournament project, call it what you will.
Until we get beat 4-0 Wednesday.
1-4 Wednesday.
So we'll see how that goes. James mentions there the enforced layoff for Nicolas Kuhn, and he's come back. He's looked fresh. He was lively on Saturday night, and I think Daizen Maeda absolutely fits into that bracket. So he missed the Ross County and Dundee games. I don't even know what the knock was, but obviously nothing serious. And Asim comes in on Saturday night, gets the winner, goal number 15 of the season, 15 in 30 games. Are we a completely different side when Daizen Maeda plays?
Maeda and Kuhn for me, I think both of them. I think if either of them are missing, we're lacking because of the depth that isn't there in the wide areas. But yeah, Maeda, what an absolutely incredible season he's having. Is this numbers wise? This is the most he's had, I think.
Yeah,
I'd say so.
Yeah, and he's on course for a lot more hopefully as well. So yeah, his energy, and I think you've seen that right from the kickoff on Saturday. I think we had the chance straight away, and it came from Daizen Maeda pressing down the right hand side. We nicked the ball, and I think that set the tone for how we performed pretty much all of the game. You mentioned earlier, don't let the mainstream media fool you. I don't even think it's the mainstream media. I think it's some of our own fans.
The calls come from within the house.
Yeah, because I came home and went on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and I was like, are people watching the same game that I just watched? Because I thought we were as good as we'd been since the new year. And epitomised by the very start to the game. So, and I think, the two of them, Maeda and Kuhn, I think when they're on it, when they're on high energy, Kuhn kind of really grew into the game, especially second half. But yeah, that's what sets the tone. And with Maeda, I think when he's had a few games recently where he's not been fully on it, and I think that impacts the team performance. But good to see them two back. As you said, we'll tell on Wednesday whether it's been timed perfectly. There was a wee period where, I'll be honest, I was concerned as well when we weren't creating chances. So the kind of period of like Dundee United away, Zagreb away, obviously the Ibrox game, it felt like we were flat. I think since Ross County, even the Dundee first half was good. And then there, I thought we were much more like ourselves going forward. And I think if we're creating chances, I'm in a better place.
Exactly that, Paddy. If you're missing chances, you can make your peace with that. It's if you're not creating them in the first place to miss, then you've got a bigger problem. And I say this quite a lot, but the manager's job, any manager's job actually, is to set up a team in such a way that generally keeps the door closed at the back and creates chances up front. That's what happened on Saturday. Kilmarnock restricted to limited chances. They've got fairly fortunate with their goal, but fair enough, we could probably have done better anyway. But we've created numerous chances throughout the game, and that's a big positive. But just to follow on, though, from the chat about Maeda, how important is he in general, and how big could he be on Wednesday's game?
Yeah, I think he'll be huge for us. I've mentioned what he does in terms of if teams really try and come up against us and put us under pressure from the get-go. Maeda is also that player that can give them something else to think about as well. If we were to try and get the ball in behind, he's always the guy that's pressing the back line, and he does it like very convincingly, in my opinion. He is huge in terms of how we press teams, and I think if there's a change in that position, you're not getting even the same protection on what like Greg Taylor's getting, for example, or Alex Baye if he was starting. It's not the same if Yang's in, and it's no offence to Yang, it's no offence to Palma. They'll try and
do you know what show you're on?
Apologies. No, but when you think about it, like the pressure that Maeda also puts on players is massive in comparison to any other. I think we had a show last year where we were talking about Kuhn's not supporting Alistair Johnston. I think there's only one winger in our team that can do both jobs very, very convincingly, and it is Daizen Maeda, and how well he does get back. So he's crucial. He's crucial to what we do and how we play, and I think we will see that on Wednesday from him. Yeah,
he's so unique, and it's great to have him back, and he seems to be in good shape for Wednesday, as does Nicolas Kuhn. James, it was a huge week in the career of Auston Trusty at Celtic. He had his much talked about struggles against Dundee. He struggled with the physicality of Aaron Donnelly, young Irishman who gave him a real hard time and got the better of him to get the goal. And these things can happen in football, and my take on that at the time was, that's done now, it's how you respond. So how did they respond? They had another tough game on Saturday against Marley Watkins, amongst others. Physical presence, very direct, and we know how he plays, and he's a talented player as well actually, but he's got a lot of physicality, so that was the next big challenge for Trusty. How do you think he handled it?
I think first and foremost it shouldn't have happened. The guy with his experience shouldn't be weak like that. He's he's got years on Donnelly, and I know you can say it's just two guys going up against each other. He shouldn't be letting a guy get in his head. He should be too long in the tooth for that. But Celtic has to be a safe place for players to make mistakes. It can't be make a mistake or have a bad game and you're bombed out. That just leads to chaos. So I was delighted that he was trusted by Rodgers for Saturday, and he went on, and it was McInnes isn't an idiot. He knew exactly what he was
Paddy
doing.
thinks he is.
Maybe he is, right?
He is.
Let's not fall out. We'll not fall out with it anyway, right?
No.
But he's watched that game, and he's watched a few games maybe, and he's thought, right, we'll be physical on their left-hand channel. And he's put Watkins in to do exactly that, and Trusty stood right up to him every single minute of the game, and I was delighted for him to come through that physical challenge, yeah.
What do you think of the incident that's caused the uproar, if you want to call it that? Was it a foul by Trusty on Marley Watkins?
You're right. Derek McInnes is an idiot. With that comment, I think that's absolute nonsense. He's sent Watkins out to be physical. Trusty stood up to it. He's been fouled, barged off the ball. It's said in the post-match, it's the most boring foul you'll see in football. It's just, there's a foul, and then McInnes is saying they took it for 20 yards from where the incident happened, took it 5 yards behind where it happened. So no ref is going to start, putting you to the spot on that. It's McInnes' own fault. His team weren't set, and that's as simple as that.
Because piss from Watkins.
Aye, there you go.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
like
I love it.
The lip readers
Full
are in.
circle. Full circle. But another time we played him in another game, we just can't accept defeat.
You called it. We done the pre-match,
Honest to
and
God.
Paddy says he's always, a lot of managers do it, to be fair. It's deflection. It's like, I've got a wee opportunity here for 5 minutes post-match, and I can take the heat off myself or off my team. And managers often do it. It's an age-old story.
If you're looking at least medium term, that's excuse culture. That'll kill you.
Next Rangers manager.
I think he should have been a long time ago. Aye.
Yeah, we'll see. Asim, just in terms of Auston Trusty, certainly in the bigger picture, he's here for games like Wednesday night. How confident do you feel in him being the starting centre half for such a big game?
Yeah, I think James nailed it. I think we shouldn't have this kind of culture where one bad game and that's it. I think he's earned the trust of the fans and the manager that throughout his start to his career, Atalanta home, the Leipzig game, he was great. Generally and domestically, I think he's been good. So one bad game, which he was really bad. And I think Saturday, you're right, up against a physical opponent. Perfect example for him to show that it was a one-off. I've seen a lot of people talking about the kind of similarities with Julian. He used to kind of have struggled with Lyndon Dykes.
Not a fan.
No, of Julian. I like Julian as well.
Superman.
I liked him.
Weak as piss.
But that was the challenge for Trusty, to show that that's not going to be a common theme, and I think he handled it brilliantly. And overall, I've been impressed with him, and I'm happy for him to kind of keep his place with. Obviously, there'll be rotation with the three of them, but Carter Vickers has started a lot of games now, hasn't he? Which is good to see.
Look at how settled that right-hand side of defence is as well. I think that's a huge factor for players in terms of Carter Vickers and Johnson have got a familiarity with each other. They know where each other's going to be. 9 times out of 10, the ball's getting played out a lot quicker. I think the Chopman changing at left back, the Chopman changing at the left side of defence, that's not a lot of time for players to settle and understand each other and how they play as well.
Yeah, I totally agree, Paddy. I was going to ask the very question. We spoke, or have spoken a lot about that Carter Vickers and Starfelt partnership domestically. They never lost a domestic game when playing together for Celtic. And generally speaking, Ange had the luxury of keeping his back four and his goalie the same. And I think the left-hand side is an area that we've chopped and changed, and it's not helped anybody. Sometimes Trusty's made big mistakes, Scales has made some mistakes, Taylor's had his backlash at different times. But it is a wee bit unfair because it's different partners at different times, and it doesn't allow you the chance to form those key partnerships. So obviously we've got the ongoing left back situation, but I'd like to find some consistency, because that's where you can really build from and kick on.
Not just in I think we'll obviously touch on, we're going to speak about the midfield in a bit as well, but just across, as much as the depth of the squad is so good now that you can rotate and it's not really weakening the team, it can also lead to the kind of lack of fluency we've maybe seen in the last month or so, where there's constant chopping and changing. So players get used to playing with the same players and kind of working those patterns. And I think maybe that's impacted, like you say, the back left side of defence, and then sometimes midfield or rotations out wide. So I think generally having that kind of consistent lineup or knowing your strongest team is a strength, but also when you then get injuries, it can be a problem. And I think that's where we've got a good squad, we've got good options, but there will be points in the season where we're not going to steamroll teams every single week, and I think that's what's happened. And I think we're still in such a good position, and that's where people like you say, need to maybe step back a wee bit, look at the bigger picture, and think this could all be leading towards hopefully what we'll now see in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, there's lots to be excited about at this moment in time. James, very quick one, not to dwell on, but amongst that consistency amongst the back four and the goalie, a couple of listeners' questions come in, and Holmesy that we know has asked a question about when does Sinisalo get a chance? Not this season would be the answer for me. League Cup might have been the time to do so, but unless Kasper Schmeichel gets injured, I don't think you can replace him. He's a guy that at his age wants to play every minute of every game, and he's so important to what Celtic are doing. I just don't think we can afford to shake that up in any way.
I think part of the problem is Schmeichel's not newfound, but his absolute enthusiasm for playing football.
He had his dad, talking about his dad was asked on, was it the overlap?
Yeah.
How's he enjoying the move to Celtic? He's like, wow, it's brilliant for him.
Away.
He's having the time of his life.
Yeah. So that, and obviously still with his international ambitions, he wants to play every single game, and he's not in there because he wants to play every single game. He's in there because he's an excellent goalkeeper, and he's a real part of, as Joe Hart was, but to an even greater degree, of starting attacks for us. So as long as Sinisalo and Schmeichel and the goalkeeping team are working off the pitch on cloning Schmeichel into Sinisalo, I'm more than happy. I think it's next season, maybe. You'll see him pre-season. There you go, Holmesy.
Is some save from Schmeichel, the free kick in the first half?
Brilliant
Put
save.
it right onto the crossbar. It's a brilliant save from him.
Big moment in the game, nothing each at that stage, isn't it? So he plays a huge part and continues to do so. Let's move on. So obviously I'd mentioned Holmesy's question. There are a few good listeners' questions that have come in as always, so we'll run through them here. First one from Ryan, who's part of our WhatsApp community, and Ryan says, in the second half of the season, with less games to play, I imagine we'll see less rotation than we have done recently. What do you think our best midfield three is, and should we be looking for a strong number 6 in the summer? And that's something that's come up quite a lot recently, Paddy, in terms of a Wanyama type enforcer. So yeah, I'll ask you twofold. Your best three, and do we need a 6?
My best three would be Callum McGregor, Arne Engels, and I would say Rio Hatate. But it's been a poor run from Hatate just now.
Yeah. So Saturday's three.
Saturday's three is our strongest three midfielders in my opinion. I think Hatate gets you goals. Hatate gets you into positions quicker than all of our midfielders. He's so intelligent on the ball, but he has off days, and that's the consistency. Probably the big reason why he's playing with Celtic, if I'm being honest. I don't know how you coach that. I don't know how you bring that consistency to his game. But we've seen it where we've got maybe 10, 15 games out of Hatate and he's been playing brilliant, and then there is a dip here or there. So yeah, I still think on his days he's one of the best midfielders at the club.
How did you think he done on Saturday?
I thought he was fine. I thought he was okay. Again, we're speaking about that's been one of the best performances going forward. A lot of the things we look at Hatate on the ball, but off the ball, he's very, very clever in the positions he gets himself into, makes himself very much available, a lot quicker than what I've seen from any of the others. But if he's not having a good game, he goes into hiding sometimes.
He's up here or down there.
He really
There's
is.
very
really
little
is.
in between. Asim, I thought, well, forgive him his missed chance, and it was a big chance, but I thought he had a pretty good game on Saturday. I thought he was very creative. It was he who created Kyogo's chance when he was through on goal. When Nicolas Kuhn cracked the crossbar, Hatate's brought it down his chest and had a brilliant effort, well saved at the time. I thought he was actually back to far more like himself on Saturday, and that in itself is encouraging for Wednesday. Is he in your best three if it comes to it?
I think when he's on form, when he's at his best, yes. But I think he, as Paddy said, he's far too inconsistent. I think he's played himself back into contention on Saturday there, because I think prior to Saturday he hadn't really played much since Ibrox. Him and Bernardo
was a surprise.
Yeah. So I think again, though, Rodgers is probably earmarked Wednesday.
I think so.
Yeah, you know what? He still probably values him as his creative spark in that midfield, especially in a game we're going to have more of the ball. So I think he's played him and he's got a performance out of him, and I think he will start on Wednesday, and I think it's probably the right decision, because when he's on that kind of form, he's got that defence splitting pass in him. Yeah. It's just that he gives the ball away a lot when he's not doing. It reminds me of Ncham. You know, everyone used to say that Ncham on his day was a Rolls Royce midfielder, brilliant, but he was just far too inconsistent, and you've seen that with the career trajectory he's had since. Whether Rio can find that at some point in his career, but it's 2-3 seasons now, and we're still waiting for a full consistent season out of him. But we've seen him against Leipzig, again, one of his best performances this season. If he can do anything similar to that on Wednesday, he will be part of a winning team if he can play like that.
Yeah. Would you say it's good man management by Rodgers to get him to this point? I asked the question, James, about managing the squad so that we're at optimal levels for Wednesday. Rio Hatate is maybe an example in itself about a guy who was in and out, not great, but the manager's just saw fit to bench him, give him some cameos, start him here and there, but started him on Saturday with a view to having him ready. And based on what he put in on Saturday, he is ready for Wednesday. So it would seem to be a good bit of work there by Rodgers.
Yeah, I suppose it's two questions on the table here. You've got the question for Wednesday night, and I think that is exactly what Rodgers has done. He's given us a Rio Hatate that could go out and give us one of his amazing performances. I thought he was excellent on Saturday, some of his through balls. Even within the game, he was maybe a bit inconsistent, but he's definitely played his way in. The broader issue for me is, of all the midfielders, I think they've all got need to improve. Yeah. But the worry is, I only really see space for improvement in Engels, Bernardo, to a lesser degree McCown. I don't know if there's any more coaching that you can get into Rio Hatate in terms of that inconsistent side of things. And I think McGregor's arc is just at the back end of things. So it's a challenge for the scouting team, I think.
Do you think we've seen the best of Hatate at Celtic, that he doesn't get any better than this?
Yeah. Okay. Just to add to that, if you look at Rodgers when he first came in last season, he didn't start Hatate, if you remember.
David Turnbull was the guy.
Yeah, and I think that was Rodgers then, even just trying to get that consistency out of him. And here we are a year and a half later, and he's still not really managed to get it. So kind of agree with you on that one.
They were doing a thing for a period of weeks where, when we were up at Paddy and stuff like that, they were just giving Rio 90 minutes no matter how knackered he was, and they were just driving it into him that this is what it takes to be a footballer.
Cup final.
They done it there. He was absolutely gassed out in the League Cup final. We were screaming for him to come off, and he was the best man in extra time for Celtic. He must be so frustrating for a manager because the talent is clear to see, and there's fans that like Rio and fans that don't like Rio, and that's absolutely fine. But I don't think anyone can deny he's got talent because we've seen it. The body of evidence is there that we've seen the talent. It's just the frustration, Paddy, that we don't see it every other time.
100%, and I think he could be massive for us on Wednesday. He could be, or he could go and stink the place out. You know, I think like that's where we're at with him. I do think it's been managed well. I do think that he's been given those games where you're going to play 90 minutes. We're going to see how your body reacts to it. And I wonder if, like, we go back to the fact that he's not really started his professional career till later on as well. I wonder if there's still an element of he's not up to the speed he's required to be a professional footballer. He's maybe missed that couple of years, which could have been so beneficial to him.
Quite a lot. It was maybe 23 when he turned pro.
22, 23, aye. So, and that is huge. That is huge. You're not doing that week in, week out. You're not training. You're not playing as many games as what he's playing at the moment. But like we've said, it just kind of feels like that team that started on Saturday for me was like a gathering of the guys that have got us so far this season and said, be ready for Wednesday. And I think that he is included in it because of what he can do. And I think that again, it goes back to that familiarity of who's playing around you, who you're used to and who you're settled with. There's an element of those players going in on Wednesday and saying to themselves, right, we've done this before, we know what we can do to teams if we're on top of it. The only issue, the only worries that I have is obviously bar Scales. It's the same team that went to Ibrox. But when you look at some of the factors of that game, they pressed us more than we've had in a long time. You look at Nicolas Kuhn. Nicolas Kuhn gets taken out of the game pretty quickly with the bang in his nose. That you're not going to have a comfortable game after that. And I just think that there was a few people that just the occasion ended up being too much for them. So a great time for us 11 to go and prove the doubters wrong.
I think it is Rodgers' strongest 11 because if you look at it throughout the course of the season, when it's been a big game, he's tended to go with that. Pre the cup final, that was his team. Ibrox, it was his team. Ibrox, I think everyone let themselves down,
big time,
manager included, and then he kind of changed it a lot. Bernardo's barely featured since. Hatate's barely featured since.
Yeah, Engels had to miss Ibrox, of
course.
He was due to start as per the league, but I think his illness took over.
I think that's another thing as well. I think that again that could totally change the total dynamic of that fixture as well, because you're looking at Bernardo maybe just being brought out the cold a wee bit and just expected to step up on the day. So there's different little factors.
Just one other about the midfield though. I think we've got 5 great midfielders.
Yeah.
I don't think the balance is right though in terms of like I think there's still like 2 kinds of midfielders missing from that 5. We've got a lot of good characteristics in there, but we don't have that enforcer Wanyama, and we don't have that creative Matt O'Reilly or Tom Rogic or even Aaron Moy. We've not replaced any of those 3.
My argument on that though is the amount of goals we've scored this season, and I think it's more on the defensive side. And I know you're talking about an enforcer, but Celtic have played football a long time since the likes we had Victor Wanyama and the likes of Scott Brown. we've played really, really good football, that we've been too much for any team for us to need an enforcer. And I think that's what a manager wants more than a guy that's going to go about, you know.
I think it's just
making
on some key occasions. So Celtic generally, you know, we play with the wingers high and wide, and they're very effective, and their goals speak for themselves. 16 for Kuhn, 15 for Maeda. But it's at times when that's not working, or your wingers are having an off day. Do you have it within your team to go through the middle? And I don't really think we do have that option. So people will call this a lack of plan B from the manager. He can only have that plan B if he's got the players. And I don't think, whether it's an enforcer or, in this example I'm giving, a number 10, I don't think we have the Rodgers, the Moy to unlock things. I tell you what we'll do, just to get back on track or nail Ryan's question. So your midfield three is the three that started Saturday, Paddy. It's Callum McGregor, it's Rio Hatate, and it's Arne Engels. Where are you lads at? Just
same three for me.
best three.
It's the same, but it depends on which Rio.
Can I give you
gamble
that?
you need to take.
Can I give you that?
Yeah, it's Rio.
And I'm the same. And I think that is the best three. And Bernardo's been impressive at times. And Luke McCown has done very little wrong in a Celtic shirt. But just for the here and now, I think that's the best three. And I think they certainly could do with a six to give Callum McGregor a rest, if not to pair him up with Callum McGregor for some of the challenges we might face if we progress in Europe. I know from hearing Brendan Rodgers speak at an event that he was reluctant to see Tomoki Iwata leave. Not because he was a regular, but because he did see a part for him in the bigger picture. He was offered a deal, but Iwata wanted regular football, and he's now gone to Birmingham City with Chris Davies and whatever their project is down there. We've tried various guys in that position. Remember Oliver Abelgard and Idah, even Kuhn. I don't know if he was signed at that type of player.
McCarthy.
So I think, let's move on. I think it just feels like Celtic have tried to fill that gap and haven't managed to do so. Maybe similar to the Greg Taylor thing, we've tried to bring in alternatives or competition for Taylor, not really nailed it. And I think you could look at the number 6 as a similar thing.
But is this Paddy's, overarching point on scouting that, you can keep trying to solve that problem in the 2, 3, 4 million, and probably not even 4 million, the 2, 3 million bracket, and you'll constantly come unstuck in left back and in the 6. But once you start moving into the 8 to 12 bracket, it brings you a whole different type of footballer. And that might be the way we solve both those problems between now and the summer.
Who wants to come and be your £8 to £12 million sub or backup to Callum McGregor?
No, they're not the sub.
The amount of rotation, though. The amount of rotation is massive.
But they're not the sub.
That is a challenge. Let's kick on. Good question there from Ryan. The next one, it was one we were hoping to catch last week, but time was against us. It's a real interesting one. It's actually more generic than Celtic specifically. It's from GFE 1983 on Twitter. And he says, if you could change one rule in football, what would it be? And his suggestion is that if a player is fouled in the box for a penalty, he is the one who must take it. And I think that's interesting. You could have centre halves and all sorts hitting penalty kicks there. But any suggestions from yourself, James? Anything that springs to mind for you?
2, referees shouldn't be talking to players in the box at corners. If somebody commits a foul, that's on them. If they give away a penalty, that's up to them.
So there was footage doing the rounds where a referee was instructing a
coaching
Rangers player.
Coaching.
Don't go to the ground, don't go to the ground.
That wasn't even in the box, that was outside.
Okay. Why don't you think that should happen? Is that not trying to govern good football and the spirit of the game?
That's up to the player. If the player wants to commit a foul and he keeps giving away penalties, he'll learn pretty quickly not to do that.
If guys want to be daft, be daft.
Be daft, aye. So
okay.
That's a quick one. I think there's intervention from referees that shouldn't be.
Okay.
But my big one is defenders facing their own goal, getting a tap on the shoulder and collapsing like a ton of bricks. Now, if I make that contact with a player in the box and he's going to get done for diving for a penalty and he'll be booked for it, but defenders don't. The protection, you talk about overprotecting goalies, that's overprotecting defenders, and they should be booking those guys every single time, and it'll be done within 3 months.
Known in the game as a Connor Goldson. You used to see it constantly. He was facing his own goal, under a bit of pressure, a wee nudge like that. Sorry, Paddy.
But don't you hate when forwards do it? You're like, don't foul them, don't foul them, and they can't help themselves but even get close.
You're saying don't. But you should be able to do a bit of contact.
Sometimes it's just a touch in the arm or whatever, and the player, John Suter's good at it.
Following the ball.
Bad at it, good at it, whatever way you want to look at it.
Following the ball, because then the striker can't even take the ball off you.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's so frustrating, and it seems to have crept into the game, and it's more of a modern thing.
It sucks the energy out of games, really does.
So bookings for that and no coaching from referees would be your 2 takes.
Pretty reasonable stuff.
You're a reasonable man. Paddy, anything for you?
The 6-second goalkeeper rule should be enforced at goal kicks.
I don't think it's enforced at all now.
No, I know, but it should be brought back in. The amount of time wasted.
Is it still a rule?
It's still a rule, but it's just not abided by.
There was talk, and is Arsene Wenger part of this kind of football FIFA think tank, where if keepers do take an extended period of time, they're going to start awarding corners? I'd love to see that because it's Celtic Park.
Yeah.
It's ludicrous. I tell you something, it would almost stop it overnight. Because you imagine if you're under instruction from Derek McInnes, you're his goalie, and you're hovering over the ball and you can see the corner, he is not going to be happy with you.
It's his
Rightly
fault.
So that would be interesting. Anything that encourages good football, Asim, and more football has got to be a good thing. I just think that if you're at Celtic Park for let's call it a 95-minute game of football, give or take with overtime just now. Overtime? Gone all American there.
NFL here.
The fourth quarter. Tell me about the defence.
If you're heading into the fourth quarter and time's ticking, of the 95 minutes or so, though, you'd wonder just how much the ball is in play.
That was going to be mine, actually. Just funny you mentioned that. Is I want a kind of rugby style stop clock.
Aye.
Because, like you said, you're probably getting 50, 60 minutes of actual football, and
the shot changed.
And then, it never gets fully added on. That's why I enjoyed the World Cup where there was like 10 and 15 minutes of added time, because I'm getting my money. Obviously, you're just watching all the games at that point, and you're just getting your entertainment's worth. But yeah, so many times you're watching football and people are down, injuries, and it's just the time's ticking. You're not going to get that back at the end of the game, and the dynamic's different when it gets to 90 minutes. Even if you're adding on 5-10, it just feels like it's right at the death of the game. So I would like that. I like that in rugby, where they just stop the clock when the ball's out of play and then carry on.
It's pretty easy to implement, isn't it?
Yeah.
One final thing as well, I think they need to look at the rule that they brought in for the offside, an offside being given after play, in terms of, because they want to let the game run on. When a player's offside, they want to make sure that they have enough time. If there is a goal, they can check it to see if the decision's going to be correct. But actually, it's putting players under pressure. It can actually lead to injuries. Offside should be given as the
I get that,
assistant
but
sees
then the argument is there that what if they flag and then it turns out it's not offside?
There's some that are so
obvious. Yeah, the obvious
just put your flag up, mate.
The obvious ones definitely, but I don't see the solution. You can see why it happens, because you imagine if it's tight. So just say they flag Maeda offside and they go through and we score and blah blah blah. You're not getting that in that instance, so it's hard to find the balance.
True, but I just think that there's common sense when it comes to it as well.
Aye, it's not been implemented with common sense.
Common sense isn't that common. The last thing that I would highlight, Ange was asked about it last week, and he's got enough on his plate not to answer these questions.
Yesterday
Under P.
I've watched all these interviews just now. They're interesting, aren't they? He's just, I don't know how that's going to play out, but we'll see how that does go. There's calls from some fans to bring him back, and it's like, hold on a minute. Look for Rodgers' take. Well, not to the studio, but they've asked, like, why would people be crying for Ange, who was brilliant for Celtic overall?
Excellent.
When you see what we're doing just now?
I'll tell you why, though. It kind of touches on our point earlier. See, like, the immense criticism that we come under. I think it's a Rodgers thing. I think some people are just like still
does he
hold
usually
that.
sit in this seat?
The man who sits there.
Is one but do you know what I mean? It's almost like I've seen it in the last few weeks.
There's I told
People
you
are
so
just,
stuff.
Yeah, just waiting to kind of get the knives out for Rodgers.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was Ange and we were having this exact same season, there wouldn't be any talk of negativity, I don't think.
Ange did by and large the exact same thing that Rodgers did.
Yeah.
There's no difference for me.
Well, the European stuff wasn't good, was it?
Oh, yeah, so there you
Ange.
go.
No, in terms of leaving.
Oh yeah.
In terms of leaving,
yeah.
Just left. You
We'll
know what I mean?
cover that another time. But Ange was asked about the potential of sin bins, 10-minute sin bins for certain types of fouls. So not a yellow, not a red, somewhere in between, and guys having to sit off for 10 minutes. And he says, why do people constantly come up with ideas that are just going to ruin the game? Because what you'll get is 10 minutes of negativity. The team that are down to 10 men temporarily will
Hold
just
the
try
ball.
and smother the game and choke the game out and stuff. And you do wonder, like, some of the moves that come in, and it seems to be guys that have never even watched football, let alone played football. There's some strange decisions. I'm pleased that a guy like Arsene Wenger is at the forefront, because he's a wise and experienced football guy, but some of the calls are very strange.
See, just right in line with that. See that key match incident panel? That has got to go.
What's that?
It's a glorified pub chat. It's basically they say, no, key match incident. It's like an official SPFL thing.
Oh, aye,
But it's
they
like-
call him stuff.
Yeah.
Aye, but it's like a Michael Stewart type. I don't think he's in it, but he was asked to do it, for example. And then there'll maybe be an ex-manager and maybe an ex-referee kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all given, and bear in mind, these guys don't necessarily keep bang up to date with the changing rules.
Aye, there's a lot of that.
And they don't, see if they want to video it like Willie Coleman, and you can understand their even if they podcasted it, if you want to blur your voices or whatever kind of thing, if you were worried about your windies because certain teams aren't great for that, then we would have a bit more transparency on it. But it's five guys that ask, and I'm assuming it's five guys as well, but you're given like a 3-2 or a 4-1 or a 5-0 in terms of supporting the decision or not, with no reasoning behind it. So, for example,
Subjective then.
subjective. You look at Yang's penalty at Ross County was not subjective in the least. I think
Stonewaller.
it got a 3-2. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So is that subconscious bias kicking in where people just can't really see that? If they're not going to be transparent about it, bin it, waste of time.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I do think Willie Collum has brought more transparency to the game, which should
I'm
be
a big
encouraged.
fan of what Colum's done.
Yeah.
That's maybe just one that isn't adding anything. In fact, it's muddying the waters.
Yeah, and that's not good. So some interesting calls there. So thanks to JFE 1983 for the question. And as I say, I do like his suggestion about the penalty kick taker being the guy who was fouled. So maybe Wenger will be tuned in and he'll implement that one. Last question for today is from Badger from the WhatsApp community. I don't know if it's Myths Badger.
I hope so.
But whatever Badger it is, thanks for the question.
He's old pet Badger.
He's in it. And Badger asks, has recent criticism of Adam Idah been over the top? It was only a few months ago that some deemed Arne Engels to be a flop, inverted commas. It's not Idah's fault we paid the big price tag for him, and without his goals we might not have been in the Champions League this season or have the Scottish Cup in the trophy cabinet. What's your general take on that, Paddy? Is it warranted? Is it over the top? Is it somewhere in between?
Kind of touched on this not that long ago. I do think that improvement needs to be made from the big man. I do think that there is elements of his game that he's putting himself under more pressure than he needs to. We've said it many a time, there's a weight to this jersey, and then there's a price tag as well. And I think that we know what he's capable of. We've seen it. We've seen a guy that when he's in full flow, his finishing's very good. He gets in behind pretty well for a big guy as well. And he's very good in that physical battle. He's very good at holding the ball up. But we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that. So something has to give. Something needs to change for him, and change for him quickly. You don't get a lot of time at this club.
You think he was a bit better on Saturday when he came on?
I thought he was okay. In glimpses. I think there's a lot more highlight on our strikers this season. And I've said it and I'll say it again. They're going to miss chances. Every good striker does as well. But the big evidence for Celtic this season is that the strikers are not our forefront this year. Our wingers are scoring the goals and getting the assists. Yeah. So we need to remember that, and we need to be a bit more patient with them. I'm still patient with Adam Idah, but I just don't think you get a lot of time here.
I think it's fair to say that the manager plays a system which absolutely plays towards your wide guys, or your wide forwards as he calls them, getting your goals. And 31 goals between Kuhn and Maeda tells that story alone. I think Kyogo's got 12 in all competition. Idah will be somewhere 6 or 7 maybe. Need to check that. But were we playing a system where it was all about your number 9, then that would be a concern.
Yeah.
So it's not as much of a concern. However, looking at the player themselves, as some strikers thrive on goals, it's their bread and butter, it's their thing, and that's why you pay the big ticket for these kind of guys. And just on that then, do you think Idah would be getting less grief if we'd paid, say, $3.5 million for him?
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, the price tag, people, whether they admit it or not, is going to play a factor in their opinion of it. But as you have said, it's not him that decides the figure. You know, Celtic paid what they felt he was worth and what they wanted to bring him in, and Rodgers was keen on him. Paddy said it earlier that we've seen how good he can be. You know, he was brilliant in the second half of last season. Crucial big goals. He just looked like a guy in confidence, and I think that's what's lacking right now. You can see it, his kind of demeanour. I did think he looked good when he came on Saturday, but I think his general play's been okay. He just needs a goal or two just to get his confidence back up. He's not had a ton of chances. I know he missed a couple at Dundee, the one at Ross County, but I think Kyogo misses more. But he's obviously he scores some crucial goals as well and has done. But both of them, I think, have missed a lot. Like, generally, both of them haven't scored enough goals, I think, as we'd like. Yeah. Yes, but it means that we're heavily reliant then on Kuhn, Maeda in the midfield. You'd want your strikers also chipping in more than they are, I think. And especially going into big games coming up, you want them kind of firing in full confidence, and I think that's where right now they both don't look at. Kyogo, we thought after Ross County would, and then again kind of missed a few and went, which is going to be the case. But I just think it's been a kind of running theme throughout this season that both strikers haven't been fully firing. Yeah, and that's all fair. However, if you do look up Scottish Premiership top scorers, top of the tree is Kyogo alongside Sam Dalby from Dundee United, and then it's a litter of Celtic players. Yeah. It's Kuhn, it's Maeda, it's McCowan. There's various guys, McGregor. You know, there's all these Celtic players in the top, whatever it is, 15 or 20. So the goals are certainly been spread about. But James, you know, to call it on Adam Idah specifically, how do you think he's going to fare for Celtic moving forward this season and beyond?
I mean, it's definitely over to the player. I believe in him 100%. I think he's got talent, and I think he's also got space to grow. If you go back to what we were saying about Engels and Bernardo, he's got space to grow. And he's in with a coaching team that wants to coach players to the best of their ability. And I think he can, deliver a lot even better than what he did last season. But it is down to the player at the end of the day. He's got to have the attitude and the mindset to be coachable and to be coached to the best of his ability. And if he doesn't, and he wants to, make a move in maybe a year and a half kind of thing, I think he'd be here for this season and next. And if things aren't working for him, then it might be. But I'd be very disappointed, and all parties, if we didn't manage to get Idah up to the best of his ability, because I think he's got it.
Yeah, and I think since returning, there's no doubt we've not seen the best of him, but I think he is the kind of young lad who is open to being coached, and he's got a likeability about him. He doesn't have, an arrogance. I was at the press conference when he was re-signed, if you want to call it that, and he was a breath of fresh air. He was really good, and he just seems very positive about being back at Celtic. So I'm hoping, like all good strikers, he's having a spell just now, but that he comes out the other side and shows the best of himself. So thanks to Ryan for his question, to JFE 1983, and to Badger, whether he's Miffs Badger or not, for his. Let's move on as we close out the show. I want to take a glance towards Wednesday night. Obviously we'll be covering that in detail in the countdown to kick-off. I'm going to record that on Tuesday night with Greg over in Canada, so we'll confirm timings of that on the socials, and we'll get into it in a lot more detail. But for now, I'll come at you first on Asim. Key question: is this night, and this type of night, tailor-made for a guy like Auston Trusty, who's had a bit of grief recently, Arne Engels, who's taken a bit of flack as well, and even Nicolas Kuhn, to come and really show what they're made of and to stamp their authority on this competition? Is a huge night for these guys, amongst others.
Massive. It's probably part of the reason they've came to Celtic. It'll be a big draw when we were trying to sign them, that you're going to play in front of 60,000 on Champions League nights, and not only just run of the mill Champions League game. This is a huge game for the club in terms of recent history. It's been 10 years? Is it 10 years?
12, I think.
Since we last got Juventus. Yeah. So it's a long time since we made it out of a group stage of the Champions League. So it's massive, and I think the three characters you mentioned, they seem like the type that thrive on these kind of occasions. Arne Engels as well. You look at the kind of way he started his career, came straight in, Derby game, Slovan Bratislava. So I think he'll be itching to go. Kuhn is, as well. He's had that Leipzig game that everyone's going to be talking about for a long time, and you just feel that it's made for him as well to kind of have another big performance. I thought he looked really sharp again second half on Saturday, and Trusty as well. I think Rodgers will go with Trusty and CCV again, and he's had a really good Champions League campaign. Obviously Dortmund aside, where the whole team was poor, he's recovered so well from that. And just the team in general, what an opportunity this is.
Yeah.
It's going to be one that will be talked about for a long time if we can do it. And it's just such an exciting game. And it's one of those ones as well where, yes, we're favourites, but we should go into it full of confidence. Look at the season we're having. So yeah, I can't wait for it.
Yeah, Paddy, and just on that in terms of being favourites, so Young Boys currently sit rock bottom of the group, the 36-team Champions League. They've got 0 wins from their 6 games and a goal difference of -19. They do have a new manager in place. They've got a new coach who took over mid-December. I think they had a break as well, but he's come back. They're sitting 9th in the Swiss League. They're not having a good time of it at all. So absolutely on paper, Celtic are favourites. But as we know, these games aren't played out on paper, but it's a huge opportunity, as Asim says. And on that, who do you think are going to be the men to step up for Celtic? Who's crucial to us getting the win?
I think it is Nicolas Kuhn. I think he's been massive for us. I totally agree with you on that, Asim. I think he relishes this kind of fixture, and the way he looked on Saturday, he just looked as if he was ready. He's ready for this kind of game coming up on Wednesday. He just seemed a bit back to what we've seen from him. I just think he could be lethal for us, and I think he'll be a massive player for us. I think the right-hand side will be huge for us on Wednesday, and if that's going to be Engels. I've actually noticed Engels is kind of switching over to the left a little bit in some games, which is he seems to be quite comfortable in doing so. Maybe giving Hatate a little bit of time out on the right as well of midfield. So I think if you've got that fluidity, if you've got Daizen Maeda on song, and you've got a Nicolas Kuhn that wants to go and bring his name back into the conversation for the Germany team as well. It's a big game for us to do so on Wednesday. They're talking about the new manager bounce potentially being a thing. They drew nothing each with bottom of the league.
Maybe he's just waiting for that bounce. For
it could be. The game after don't say that, but I do think that they're a team in transition. I think they lost a lot of players in the summer, so they're kind of still finding their feet as a unit as well. But no, we'll respect them, as I've mentioned before.
Does it worry you when the other teams like have
no,
an absolute no,
because I think I'm not comparing Young Boys to Slovan Bratislava. I think they're a better outfit.
They're a better team.
But I think there was a tiny little bit of pressure of we don't know who we're coming up against with Slovan, and we wiped the floor with them. I do think we'll be confident. I do think that we are at that point that we are going to give a team a bit of a doing,
Yeah.
and it could be them.
The manager, so it's a guy called Giorgio Costini, and he talks about when he took over. I read the article. He took over just mid-December, as I say, and he says, James, that they, as a club, generally play with an aggressive high press and a fair amount of physicality, and he doesn't want to change that. And actually, that's what's troubled Celtic in recent times. You know, Dundee, Ibrox, you know, struggled with the physical challenge, struggled with a high press, and the fact is, Young Boys aren't qualifying anytime soon. That's done for them. Does the fact that they don't have that pressure, they could end up playing with a bit of a freedom, and that could be quite dangerous for us.
Yeah, I mean, they're looking at this as a game to kickstart their league campaign. You know, Champions League doesn't matter to them. I do think they're a worse outfit than Bratislava, by the way. I watched them only once this season against Aston Villa, and they were woeful.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, you know, maybe a team in transition, but it doesn't sound like things have settled much since then, and a new manager who's not really going to change anything. We just can't be complacent. You know, we'll always look at opposition and look at what they're going to bring to the game. But I think, cliched as it is, it's about what we do on Wednesday night.
It's a game of two halves.
It's a game of two halves. Play the whistle. As long as we play our flowing football that we know we can, and we stand up to aggression. And I think, you know, with Bruges, Zagreb, Rangers at Ibrox, those are games where, you know, we've come off without 3 points in all three of those games.
Mm-hmm.
And players will be smarting from that, particularly the Rangers game. But I'd say the Champions League games as well, because a win in either of those games probably puts us through before Wednesday night.
Yeah.
So they'll take the sting of that, and hopefully they're learning from that and how to adapt when a team has been aggressive in the press. But you need to be careful as well. Aggressive in the press in the SPFL versus aggressive in the press in Europe, two different things.
Yeah, that's true. I just think for the players, as you touched on there, it's a huge opportunity to blow away some of the negativity. There has been negativity. There's been gripes and moans in various places, some justified, some not so much, but the players are aware of this. You know, they live in a digital world. They see the flack that's coming their way at times, but a result on Wednesday and a performance blows it all out the water. That, you know, that takes care of it, and you can kick on into the rest of the season with that real feel-good factor behind you. Last big question on this game specifically as we head towards the end of this week's show: how big a part do the fans have to play on Wednesday night, Paddy? It can make such a difference at Celtic Park, but particularly on these big nights.
Well, it'll be massive, and I think that it's being that 12th man, getting behind the team, support.
More cliches.
More cliches, another one. Playing to the whistle. No, we really just need to support them as a team, and just be patient. I do think we'll take goals off this team on Wednesday, I really do, but we need to just get behind them. There will be mistakes. We've got players that make mistakes. Every team does as well. We're also going to a stadium on Wednesday night. I think there's 2,500 fans making it over for Young Boys as well. And I think from what I know about Swiss football is that the fans are pretty raucous. So just be up for that as well, and just be up for supporting your team and getting them through it. What they don't need is any negativity. What they don't need is groans. What they need is support. And actually, I think we heard a lot of that on Saturday. It was good support for the team.
Yeah.
So I think that it's shaping up to be such an exciting game. It'll be a nervy game. I think we look at the Club Brugge game, we look at the Zagreb game. Club Brugge, especially at Celtic Park, I think a lot of fans were just so excited after the Leipzig game, hoping that we would go and produce a similar display. And it got a bit nervy. But we just have to trust in what this team have done so far this season, and just hope that we go and wipe the floor with them.
Yeah, it's a massive night ahead, and I think we've all got a huge part to play in, and hopefully the boys get the job done on the night. A couple of final pieces of news. We won't discuss them in any great detail. David Pleat given a scouting role at 80 years of age. You know, he's obviously well experienced in the game, and it seems that Paul Tidsdale has saw fit to bring him in, and it could, you know, pay dividends. James, we'll need to see how it goes. We've talked about Bernabé going to Internacional in Brazil for 5 million, or a rumoured 5 million.
Robbery.
Maybe robbery. And I've seen a tweet, I think it was from Everything Celtic, saying that Celtic have now picked up around 15.5 million for the sales of Bernabé, Mikey Johnson, and Bosun Lawal. They should have held out for more for Mikey Johnson, but so be it. And again, we don't have time to cover this, but we're back up against Dundee on Saturday at Celtic Park. Trusty's revenge, I'm going to call that game. Big chance for him to show that he's learned from recent times. But for now, lads, I'm looking for your final comments. I'll come to you first, Asim.
Yeah, just obviously all roads lead to Celtic Park on Wednesday. Just to add to the cliches, if we can't beat Young Boys in the current state they're in, then we don't deserve to go through with those.
100%.
But in saying that, just to add to Paddy's point, I think the fans will be crucial. I think there's going to have to be patience. The fact that we didn't get the job done against Bruges and Zagreb has made this a nervy night And I think if things aren't going well, my worry is that the fans will start doing the kind of usual negativity. I just hope it's not the case, and we can maybe get off to a good start, because I think the players will need us to kind of stick with the team, because it's going to be one of those nights. It's never going to be easy, I don't think. Hopefully it will be, but I think it's going to be one that we're going to have to really earn it. But I can't wait. It's, as we've said, such a good opportunity, and I think that's going to make or break our season. In terms of how it's looked upon afterwards.
Do you see Rangers coming back and win the league?
No. League's done. I think even we'll have obviously the Scottish Cup in the league, but I just think everything kind of rides on this game in terms of how the rest of the season pans, and I'm hopeful that we'll win. Yeah,
and here's hoping. It's so exciting, the prospect of qualifying, and we were chatting before coming on here as to who we might face, one step at a time and all that. But it really just keeps your season.
The other thing is we do have a backup of the Villa game as well. Should all go pear shaped and win.
Don't want that.
I know.
A trump card. Paddy, your own final thoughts?
I think just go for it on Wednesday. Why not? I think we've been super impressed with how well we've played this season in this tournament. Dortmund aside, and I think that we have kind of established ourselves a little bit, and I think that there'll be confidence for this team to try and kick on. A manager has stated that he wanted to make a stamp in Europe when he returned, and I think that if he gets into this next step, it's all roads leading to paradise. It's all roads leading to Munich, mate.
Yep. It's tangible progress, isn't it, Paddy? Managers can say fluffy things, and we want to see progress on the park, off the park. If Celtic progress to a knockout stage, James, it's far more than we've done in recent times, so the proof would be in the pudding. So your own final thoughts?
Ange must be going, I never get drawn against Bern and Bratislava. I mean, that's be Atletico, Real Madrid. No, I think Austin's spot on. I think it's a real springboard opportunity, this game on Wednesday night. I've no doubt the fans will be 100% behind the team the whole game, and it's going to be real interesting if they get to that playoff. I think one of the listeners' questions was around, does that change our budget and what we do in the transfer window? I don't think the finances of the Champions League to come change our transfer window, because we've banked the money essentially for getting this far. But the games we have to play might change, and what you can attract with those games we have to play if you're into the knockout stages.
Maybe.
In terms of, do you go up to the 8 to 12 million bracket for that left back, for that extra midfielder? Is there something in the striker role? Just a last point on left back. What is he, Matthew Anderson?
Yes.
We'll maybe get a chat on him in the weeks to come.
Yeah, there's chat that he's having a really good time out on loan, and he could be a genuine contender to be the understudy to a Kieran Tierney if that all plays out.
So all set.
Yeah, lots to happen. We've not really touched on transfer stuff, but over the next week or so we could qualify for the Champions League. We could make maybe 2, even 3 big signings. Top of the trees, we know, League Cup in the bag, 119 trophies. Did you find something to moan about? I was going to say, what's to moan about? Did you get something?
I'm actually a moaner.
Oh,
I don't know where that came from.
You painted yourself into a corner. Okay, that wraps things up on this latest episode of the Celtic Exchange Weekly. Thanks to James, Paddy and Asim, and thanks to you for tuning in. We'll be back on Tuesday night, as mentioned, with the countdown to kick-off ahead of the Young Boys game, and we'll then have the reaction to that, as well as the pre- and post-match shows for Saturday's game with Dundee, all taking place later in the week. Remember to check out the Celtic Exchange Plus. The link for that is in the show notes, where you can enjoy every episode we do completely ad-free. You can gain early access to the Celtic Exchange Weekly every week, and you can have the chance to win Celtic prizes and our monthly prize draw. But until next time, let's get behind the boys on Wednesday. Have a brilliant week. We'll see you all again very soon.